Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about some cringy moments coming from Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. She's been known to say and act very strangely over the past year or so since she's been put into office. In previous videos, we talked about how she laughed and generally didn't seem to care much about Americans who were fatally injured in a certain big and terrible disaster that happened in New York City in 2001. And now, almost a year since that happened, and apparently Omar hasn't learned her lesson because she's once again been caught laughing and being highly inappropriate when the deaths of fellow Americans were brought up. Perhaps she doesn't think of herself as one of us though. Wouldn't be too surprising. She is from another country which she seems to still support, along with other similar countries over the US constantly. In addition, Ilhan has also acted equally cringy when she seems to be feeling sad and terrible about what's happened to our enemies, immediately followed by her again laughing when our people go down. It's a truly messed up, very telling story, and it really shows you guys why we call this series about her Ilhan Omar's Cringe. An article from Fox has more details about how this all started. It's called Omar Claim of PTSD Offensive to U.S. Veterans, Indiana Congressman Says, Squad Member Response. This should be good, but before we get into it, I can already see why veterans would be offended by Omar. She's clearly claiming PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, like how many other liberals, leftists, and social justice warriors like to make their own false victimhood claims. Victim points are a currency for these kinds of liberals, so they're more than happy to falsely claim things like having PTSD, a disability, or some sort of alphabet orientation. Either they falsely claim to have these or they'll highly exaggerate them. With that said, let's go ahead and see what else this story has to say though. Then we'll know for sure what's going on. An Indiana congressman who served in Afghanistan as a member of the Navy Reserve spoke out on behalf of Americans military veterans Wednesday after U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar, Democrat from Minnesota, claimed she suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. U.S. Rep. Jim Banks, a Republican, said Omar's comments were a disgrace, calling the remarks offensive to our nation's veterans who really do have PTSD after putting their life on the line to keep America safe. Yeah, sounds like a pretty lame claim to me. I guess Omar is flexing because she comes from a war-torn shithole country somewhere in Africa, and that gives her victimhood points in her liberal circles or something. But I just see it as her not appreciating where she's at now. America is the place you escape to. We gave you a safe home, and even you duped some of your locals in Minnesota to vote for you and give you this cushy political job, which you now misuse and embarrass our country with daily. Not to blame the victim here or anything, but war veterans and actual combatants are the real heroes, and the real ones probably suffering from PTSD, and Ilhan Omar is just claiming she has it to get attention here, and as a way to bash her least favorite person, Donald J. Trump, of course. Trump derangement syndrome is running strong in this one, make no mistake, and her claim of having PTSD is definitely a way for Ilhan Omar to say, "Orange man bad, he make me scaredy poo," or something very similar and childish like that. Next, the article shows the tweet where the real veteran calls Omar out for being offensive to real PTSD sufferers, of course. Then below his tweet is the video in question. So let's go ahead and take a look at the clip ourselves and see how it goes.
I feel ill a little bit because of everything that is taking place, and I think every time I hear about I hear of conversations around war, I find myself being stricken with PTSD.
Well then, why are you serving in Congress? More importantly, why the hell would someone like this be assigned to the House's Committee on Foreign Affairs? Just think about that for 1 minute. A member of Congress who's been assigned to a group of politicians who specifically handle affairs with foreign countries, well, she gets sick when she just thinks about possibly having conflicts with them. And we're talking about possible war with a little shithole Middle Eastern country the US would probably squash in a few weeks. Now, just imagine if this woman was serving during an actually serious war and conflict. Modern SJWs like this wouldn't last a week in the middle of, say, World War II during the 1940s. And this just goes to show how far the left has fallen and how weak they're really becoming. Liberals like this are becoming so incompetent and weak-willed that instead of hiding it and trying to at least pretend they're adults who have their stuff together, well, now people like Omar are bragging about being this weak-willed and this unable to handle current events, which also have a lot to do with her specifically assigned job. For another example, let's just pretend I'm in Congress working on a committee that's in charge of controlling our country's taxes. If I then went on the news and said the thought of numbers and writing down math and finding solutions makes me sick, well, that would look pretty stupid because it contradicts my profession. And that means I should probably be replaced in my gig that directly involves those things that make me sick. But for some reason, a foreign affairs committee member can whine and cry about a possible war, even though that's something they should be already thinking about and planning for already. Also, we were never even on the brink of war here in the first place. It was the Democrats who fearmongered this, trying to pretend Trump was leading us to another world war. That's not going to happen though, and the conflict is already dying down as we speak. But I do have to admit, it is funny to watch these silly liberals like Omar start these rumors and speculate about them so wildly that they're making themselves scared and sick and upset. It's like they're little children, and they're acting like a goddamn joke.
And I find peace knowing that I serve with great advocates for peace and people who have shown courage against war.
Against war? The Democrats, specifically Hillary Clinton and almost all of her followers, they have been antagonizing radical countries for years. You guys aren't against war. You're the ones trying to start them. First, it was North Korea who got agitated and brought to the brink of attacking us under Obama. Thankfully, Trump fixed that, but of course, the left called him a terrorist sympathizer for negotiating with them. Now the tables have drastically changed as Trump is trying to take out the real terrorists in the world. And in turn, the left-wingers are trying to side with Iran now, pretending they're a murderous leader there who took out many Americans. Well, they want to act like that Soleimani guy was some kind of hero. Also, let's not forget all the fear-mongering and antagonizing the left has done to Russia for years now. Ever since the 2016 election and even before it, Trump smoothed over our relationship with Russia too, just like how he stepped up and stopped Iran from being terrible earlier. And by the way, as Trump called out, Obama also blew it with Iran before. Our previous president, a Democrat, gave Iran hundreds of billions of dollars, which were certainly used to cause this terror attack and attack Americans recently and up until now. Basically, Democrats are the real ones who are about war. They've antagonized enemies of ours for years and tried to make World War III a thing themselves. And on the flip side, Trump and his supporters, conservatives like myself, we're the ones actually trying to do the right thing, and we're the ones anti-war, and we're the ones winning as well. Back to the article now, which says, after Banks took issue with her comments, Omar posted a reply on Twitter making reference to her youth in war-torn Somalia. Omar left her homeland with her family near the start of the Somali Civil War in 1991 and spent 4 years at a Kenyan refugee camp before immigrating to the US in 1995. Hi Jim, I survived war as a child and deal with post-traumatic stress disorder, much like many who have served or lived through war. She wrote in the tweet, which was addressed to Banks but not tagged, "It's shameful that you as a member of Congress would erase the PTSD of survivors." Okay, well, first she was saying she had PTSD from this Iran conflict, and now she's bringing up this war-torn Somalia shit to try and save face. That's the way I see it. And the other thing I see here is, for some reason, Ilhan Omar had to flee Somalia, Kenya, and all of Africa to come to America, but isn't it ironic how she still dresses like those former nations she had to flee? I mean, if I had to move away from my country into another one, and that one was better and more safe, don't you think you might try and adapt and dress like you liked and wanted to be there? But no, instead, Omar dresses like she's still in Africa, and that's fine and dandy, but it just goes to show she doesn't realize and respect America enough to try and fit in. And also, I mean, why does she want to retain that culture in that area? That's a war-torn shithole country that almost killed her and she barely survived from, and it gave her PTSD apparently, but she still wants to wear those clothes and bring back those memories, I guess. Doesn't quite make sense to me. But Banks doubled down on his comments later Wednesday evening, posting a video that showed Omar and other Democrats giggling in the background as their colleague, U.S. Rep. Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat Texas, spoke to reporters about the more than 4,000 U.S. service members killed in Iraq over the years. "Your words and actions at today's press conference reveal your feelings towards our soldiers serving abroad, and the video speaks for itself," Banks wrote, including a video of the news conference shared by Rep. Jody Heiss, Republican Georgia. Well, the plot thickens here. It looks like Omar has a bad case of some very selective PTSD now. She only gets supposedly sick and stricken with this when it's mostly convenient for her, like when when she's making political speeches and trying to slander her opponents, which is basically all she does as a politician. She doesn't really have any positions. She just attacks people and talks shit. And then at the same time, this despicable congresswoman will laugh and look happy as hell when it's time to talk about the loss of American lives. I guess Iran and their people's lives are put well above Americans, according to her, for some reason. Wouldn't expect a normal citizen, let alone a US politician, to act and feel this way, but then again, the left has become so empowered and emboldened lately, it doesn't surprise me anymore either. Next, let's go ahead and look at the next video in question and see how bad this laughing fit gets.
We never solved any problems with AUMF. We left 4,000 plus, maybe 4,400 dead, and over 60,000 who came back injured in some form.
Okay, well, here we see another terrible liberal politician talking, speaking about how thousands of Americans died at war before. A terrible tragedy and possibly a good point coming from this side for once. Loss of human life is always terrible, and especially, we should be careful when we have to put our American soldiers at risk. But if you look in the background of this, Ilhan Omar is behind this woman talking about Americans dying, and Ilhan is not being very respectful. She's whispering, smiling, and giggling with her friends there, like this is some kind of high school social hour. Didn't she just say the thought of war makes her sick? PTSD was claimed by her too, but then just moments later and she's laughing and smiling and acting totally fine. She seems elated even. And to make it even worse, someone else is now talking about American deaths, and as someone talks about American deaths, Omar is smiling and laughing in the background. Needless to say, she doesn't seem to have her priorities straight here. And also, this makes her so-called PTSD, her getting sick about war claims, look absolutely bogus. Maybe she just doesn't care about American deaths though. As we said at the beginning of this video, Ilhan has disrespected our fallen citizens before. That means, from what I can glean from this, Omar is only sad when it's other countries and other people going down, not our own. In fact, when ours go down, she gets happy about it.
It doesn't deal with an incident or a dislike or someone in a car coming in from the airport. That is the danger of not acting. And I do think without leadership, meaning the leadership of CPC, that will...
Well, I gotta say, Omar's not looking very upset, sick, or like a sufferer from PTSD here. She looks happy, fine, and totally full of herself too. She thinks she's so damn right about everything. I mean, the smugness here is off the charts. And she really seems to believe she can do no wrong. Funny coming from a party who constantly loses and hasn't accomplished anything for years. And also, to me, it just seems Democrats like Omar, they have no real plans or goals or political aspirations for themselves. All they do is blame everything on Trump and try and get him impeached over nothing and try and get themselves more power and money. Doesn't sound like a very good political movement if you ask me. And this is why the Democratic presidential candidates aren't getting any traction either. Their whole party has no legitimate platform. They're just playing politics, bashing Trump and pushing SJW bullshit. And that's why no one's taking them seriously in 2020. Lastly, it's a good time to update everyone on the America versus Iran situation one more time before we go. Because not only is it related to Ilhan Omar in this story, but also we need to talk about how America retaliated and took out one of Iran's top generals after they threatened our embassy and killed many of our people. And in addition, Iran did a sort of mock retaliation where they basically tried to show their strength by shooting off some missiles at quasi-American targets in the Middle East. The thing about that was, though, most would say that was all for show. Iran wanted to appear strong by seeming to retaliate, but also they purposely didn't kill anyone so as to not actually escalate things between us. This all resulted in Trump backing away himself too the next day, giving a pretty moving, somewhat victorious speech saying, yes, we clapped back at them before and had our own victory, but now that no one was hurt in the retaliation, we're going to go ahead and let Iran slink away, perhaps saving some face, because who cares anymore? Let's just end the conflict and everyone goes home. No harm, no foul. Next is where things get really interesting though, and this is going to make our enemies' supporters like Ilhan Omar, well, they're going to look even worse after you hear about what's come up recently this week. After Iran's fake missile attack, a plane also crashed near Tehran, Iran's capital, and apparently a number of US officials are confident that Iran actually shot down the plane, an innocent civilian airplane, by accident, which ended up killing all of the 176 people on board. This is a tragedy surely, and a horrible mistake certainly, and I wonder if any of these sorry Democrats will be rethinking their positions on supporting these kinds of horrible and murderous terrorists in the future. I doubt we'll see any remorse or an apology from Ilhan Omar though. She's probably still laughing and giggling with her high school clique, like a bunch of Democratic friends in Congress who just like to pick on everyone else. What do you guys think? Is Ilhan Omar more cringe than ever? Do you think she really has PTSD? And why was she laughing when they talked about US lives being lost? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button to help support this channel, and we'll see y'all next time.